Hey everybody, I'm your host of the Curiosity Corner, and tonight we're diving headfirst into a world of unbelievable stories. We're talking about border smuggling, but not your run-of-the-mill stuff. Get ready to meet folks who thought they could get away with hiding exotic animals in their pants, stuffing cash into hollowed-out vegetables, and even disguising weapons as everyday objects. So buckle up, because we're about to embark on a hilarious and jaw-dropping journey through the most outrageous smuggling attempts of all time. Alright, let's kick things off with our animal lovers. Or maybe I should say, animal smugglers. These are the people who just can't bear to leave their precious pets, or more accurately, highly illegal and endangered creatures, behind. We're talking monkeys stuffed in suitcases, snakes tucked into socks, and even a guy who tried to sneak a baby crocodile through airport security by claiming it was his emotional support animal. And the methods they use? Let's just say they're creative, in a desperate attempt to avoid jail time kind of way. We've got folks sewing tiny pouches into their clothing, hollowing out books and toys, and even disguising animals as everyday objects. But here's the thing about animals, folks. They poop, and they make noise. And sometimes they even bite. So, it's only a matter of time before these furry, scaly, or feathered friends blow their cover and turn a routine customs check into a scene straight out of a zoo break. It's like they genuinely believed they'd waltz right through security with a penguin waddling behind them and no one would bat an eye. Okay folks, time to get serious for a moment because this next chapter is a tough one. We're talking about human smuggling, a dark and dangerous side of the smuggling world that highlights the desperation some people face and the cruelty of those who exploit them. Imagine being crammed into a tiny, airless compartment, hidden in the back of a truck, or even sewn into the lining of a suitcase. That's the reality for countless individuals who are smuggled across borders, often promised a better life but instead subjected to inhumane conditions. These aren't just stories, they're real lives at stake. Families torn apart, individuals trafficked into forced labor, and the constant fear of being caught and deported. The lengths smugglers go to are truly disturbing. They use sophisticated methods like fake passports, altered vehicles, and even disguises to evade detection. It's a sobering thought, but it's important to remember that behind every smuggling attempt there's a story, a life, and a reason. Alright, let's lighten the mood a bit and talk about something a little less heavy: drugs. Specifically the incredibly creative, albeit illegal, ways smugglers try to sneak drugs across borders. We're talking about ingenuity that would put MacGyver to shame if MacGyver were, a criminal mastermind. We've got your classic hollowed-out books, fake fruits and vegetables, and even hollowed-out religious statues. And then there are the smugglers who take it to the next level, like the guy who tried to smuggle cocaine dissolved in bottles of shampoo, or the woman who hid heroin inside tamales. But my personal favorite? The guy who tried to smuggle marijuana across the border by disguising it as a piñata. The takeaway here, folks, is that if you're thinking about smuggling drugs, maybe just don't. The authorities have seen it all and they're just waiting for you to slip up. Now let's step back in time and talk about something a little more Indiana Jones-esque: historical artifact smuggling. These are the folks who believe they're modern-day treasure hunters, but instead of museums, their artifacts usually end up in the hands of private collectors or, worse, lost forever. We're talking ancient pottery, rare coins, priceless paintings, you name it. If it has historical significance and can be smuggled, someone's probably tried to do it. And the lengths they go to are straight out of an adventure movie. We've got folks forging documents, creating elaborate false trails, and even using decoys to throw authorities off their scent. Take for instance the case of the ancient Egyptian sarcophagus that was smuggled out of Egypt in pieces and then reassembled in a European collector's living room. These stories are a reminder that the allure of history and the potential profits from it can drive people to do some pretty crazy things. Hold on to your hats, folks, because this next chapter is not for the faint of heart. We're talking about insect smuggling, a world where creepy crawlies take center stage and things get weird fast. Now you might be thinking, who in their right mind would want to smuggle insects? Well, believe it or not, there's a huge black market for rare and exotic bugs, from collectors looking for the rarest specimens to folks who use them in traditional medicine. We're talking insects hidden in luggage, taped to bodies, and even disguised as something else entirely. One particularly memorable case involved a man who tried to smuggle dozens of live tarantulas by hiding them in his pants. And as if that wasn't bad enough, he also had scorpions in his socks. Okay, let's move on to something a little less creepy-crawly and a little more green plant smuggling. Now, you might be thinking, plants? Really? But trust me, folks, this is a bigger deal than you might think. We're talking about rare orchids, endangered cacti, and even plain old houseplants that are illegal to bring into certain countries. And the smugglers? They're like the plant world's version of international spies using all sorts of tricks to get their leafy contraband past customs. There was the case of the woman who tried to smuggle rare cacti by disguising them as lollipops, dipping them in wax and sticking them on sticks. These smuggled plants, often carrying pests and diseases, can wreak havoc on local ecosystems. Alright folks, get ready for a wild ride because this next chapter is all about body parts, but not the kind you're thinking. We're talking about fake body parts used to smuggle contraband, and it's as weird and wacky as it sounds. Imagine a prosthetic leg, perfectly sculpted and realistic, but instead of a limb, it's packed full of illegal goods. Or a hollowed-out cast, designed to look like a broken bone but concealing a treasure trove of smuggled items. Smugglers have used everything from fake casts and bandages to prosthetic limbs and even hollowed-out wheelchairs to conceal their illicit cargo. Talk about taking hiding in plain sight to a whole new level. One of the most common items smugglers try to sneak across borders using this method? You guessed it, drugs. The creativity and audacity of these smugglers never cease to amaze me. Let's talk about everyone's favorite topic, money. More specifically, the creative and often hilarious ways people try to smuggle large amounts of cash across borders. We're talking about wads of bills stuffed into every nook and cranny imaginable. Shoes, socks, underwear, you name it. And if it can be hollowed out, you can bet someone's tried to stuff cash in it. We've got folks hiding money in hollowed-out books, inside food items, and even disguised as everyday objects. One particularly ambitious smuggler decided to hide his cash in a hollowed-out watermelon. The only problem? He forgot to account for the fact that watermelons, rot. And then there was the guy who tried to smuggle thousands of dollars by taping it to his body and covering it with duct tape. Okay folks, time to get serious again because this next chapter is all about weapon smuggling, and it's as dangerous as it sounds. We're talking about guns, knives, and other deadly weapons disguised as everyday objects, and it's enough to make you look twice at your umbrella. We've got guns disguised as pens, knives hidden in belt buckles, and even explosives concealed in everyday objects like shoes and toys. One particularly chilling case involved a man who tried to smuggle a working firearm disguised as a smartphone. The phone even had a button that, when pressed, would fire a bullet. And then, there was the woman who tried to bring a stun gun disguised as a lipstick through airport security. Let's just say she wasn't looking so glamorous when she was apprehended. Alright folks, we've seen some pretty crazy stuff tonight, but this last chapter might just take the cake. Literally, we're talking about animals smuggled inside food, a bizarre and often cruel practice that's enough to make you lose your appetite. We're talking about live birds stuffed into cakes, fish hidden in bags of rice, and even reptiles concealed in hollowed-out loaves of bread. One particularly memorable case involved a woman who tried to smuggle live turtles by disguising them as tacos. She even went to the trouble of putting lettuce, tomato, and sour cream on top. And then there was the man who tried to smuggle live finches by hiding them in his underwear. The sad reality is that many of these animals don't survive the journey. Well folks, there you have it. The weirdest, wildest, and most outrageous smuggling attempts of all time. From furry friends to fake body parts, we've covered it all. Hopefully, you've had a good laugh, learned a thing or two, and maybe even gained a newfound appreciation for the hard work of customs officials around the world. Remember folks, smuggling is a serious crime and it's never worth the risk. So next time you're traveling, stick to souvenirs you can buy legally and leave the smuggling to the professionals. Or better yet, don't smuggle at all.